Shirley here with Serious Dallas Moon. And let's talk about Jupiter Hour. Let's talk about unification of the sex, real estate scams, investment scams, and how they are to do with, and how zero rape, zero slavery mindset can help people avoid overly speculative investments, which means scams. And we'll talk about father-daughter relations and unification of the sects and its application to military alliances, strategies, and so on, and investments. Topic 1. When it comes to investment, if your investment entails, or business entails rape and slavery by someone, whether you're a country or a private investor, then that investment is a scam. Think about the people that buy an estate, expect the tenant to pay the mortgage, when the tenant doesn't have a perspective to make for their own house, not reliant on any Epstein rings, drug trafficking, and so on. Is also pertaining to wealth of nations. This is why so many nations are so susceptible at this time. And here's the thing. There's no point to check the tenants. If your deal is such that, let's say you buy a estate, the prospective tenant can have their rent be used as property tax and mortgage on the estate while the estate raises value, and you can share the dividends on the raised value with the tenant. That's an actual real estate deal. Okay, then you will have a tenant that will keep the estate. If eventually they wouldn't want to live in that place, they could get the dividends for raising the value of the estate, which you can share with them on whatever you invested, whatever they invested to preserve the estate. But if the tenant doesn't have a perspective to have their own housing, which is similar at least to the house that they rent, don't expect, no point to check the tenant. The companies that you pay to check the tenants, they're going to be the companies that are going to charge higher and higher rates, what we call protection, and then they're going to torture the tenants, and then your estate is ruined, and then you keep trying to check the tenants. Very simply put, if the sector you're investing in, I gave real estate because Mars is a good example for real estate, but if you invest in a sector that entails rape and slavery, or with Neptune, violation of patient sovereignty. If it's weapon trade, then again, if it is used by strategies that are violating sovereignty or rapey, kind of rape and slavery thing, then your investment could even be your grave. Doesn't matter if you're a private investor, if you're a country. Now let's talk about the unification of the sects. Okay, so my point was made clear. If there is rape and slavery, even indirect in the investment, is basically a scam. Knowing that ahead of time, it makes a lot of things that are sounding speculative very simple, because something could be sounding speculative, but if it has zero rape, zero slavery, it can be not just investment that stands the test of time, but with a sextile to Sedna, it can be millennia. And I'm not joking. It's unprecedented time. It might not look like that in the beginning. Other scams are going to develop to the full-blown of a scam, and then poof, with Saturn, there is delay to the implication of the action. And that is what creates those scams. It's the thought that one either got away with something or that something is not as terrible as they thought, and then boom. Now, second topic. But then even so much as Spain is set in intention too, is amazing with the outer planets. Second topic. The unification of sects, day sects and night sects. Day sects and night sects is a concept of Hellenistic astrology, and this was historically the time. Yes, Lilith is square in the notes. We will have the eclipse today. Full lunar eclipse. And here is the issue. It was basically a thing that really strongly popped in Hellenistic astrology, and the historical context was such. Diana was the goddess of fertility, and then they discovered that sperm is important to have babies. But they practiced this power by raping. And so Diana became Artemis, and she protected both child-free children and children. Whereas goddesses like Juno protected married women, because married women also, but the protection, here's the thing, married women think they need protection from cheating of the husband. No, they need protection from rape within marriage. And it's going to pertain to the daughters and birthing of daughters issue, both with daughter fathers, but also daughter mothers. Now, at that time, the sects divided. Courtesan-cartisan division. Into day sect, night sect, and basically, day sect would be Sun, Mars, Sun, yes, the Sun, Mars, and the malefic out of sect would be, Sun, Saturn, the malefic out of sect would be Mars, so Sun, Saturn, and Jupiter. Night sect, people born at night, would be Moon, Mars, and Venus. So the malefic would be Mars, the strategy planet, and the benefic would be Venus. Right now, those teachings are very important because we had Jupiter and Venus meeting, the two benefics meeting, the two sects meeting together. This is why Venus and Jupiter are considered enemies, even though they are both benefics. If Jupiter is the seed and Venus is the fertility, why are they enemies, right? Jupiter the seed and the benevolence and the growth, Venus the union. what, right? There's no enmity. And we have Saturn and Mars in reception meeting upon the Saturn-Neptune, which is the two malefics are in one another's sign. Saturn rules structure, dedication, things that accumulate across time. Mars rules breaking of outdated structures. For example, Saturn-Mars hard aspects are associated as philosopher of science with times where the conventional science and the innovative science are in argument. The harmonious aspects, this is where these two work together, and this is the time usually when technology is declassified. And here is the thing. When we talk about unification of the sects, it cannot be with the courtesan-cartisan, which means if we take the transition from Diana as goddess of fertility to Artemis, basically what Artemis protected from is rape and the children that were born by rape. It's also the time where there began to be extortion cults, more active, because they could extort money for a child that hit puberty on pedophilia. Now, of course, Hellenistic period did not invent that, but as far as we can go back in Western esotericism to the transition from Diana as goddess of fertility to Artemis as goddess of the hunt, we are looking at Hellenistic period. Again, these people did not invent rape, they did not invent extortion cults, but this was the time where they would, at the beginning, worship the goddess to bring children, and then basically they discover that they need the sperm to bring a child. This leads us again to zero rape, zero slavery. Saturn rules slavery, Mars rules in its good form defending from rape, in its bad form rape. And the unification of sects tell us, what does it tell us for war strategy? To win a big war, we need to have the sects aligned. We cannot have division of sects. It means that those who are day sect and the power of choice is their superpower need to honor those people that did not have access to choice, and that power was Venus. And Venus, her power is not the way that the day sect see it. Jupiter is charitable. Venus is not. Asking for Venus to be charitable with her Venus is rape. Day sects have a blind spot to that. For the night sects, the teachings that rape creates a division and a split between avoidance and seeing power only in sexuality. This is what the day sects need to remember, that what they see as exploitation of power through the sexuality is actually the result of rape. Also, the rapist is the result of him basically being raped, but not accessing recovery when he was raped. This is imperative to understand how zero rape doing the Mars, day and night sex doing the Mars correct, and zero slavery, day and night sex doing Saturn correct, is unifying the sects. Because in the times of Diana, people just didn't know that sperm is important to bring in children. But the unification of sects is what is marketed as utopia, but is the basis for human existence. Fertility. Okay, that's the big story. We don't need to sacrifice children to Diana, nor do we need to, yes, we can venerate Artemis, nor do we need to summon Artemis to protect from rape in society where zero rape, zero slavery. And then we have easier access to the resources that we need to maintain our sovereignty, easier time to sustain boundaries, and easier time to prevent war, be economic at war, fund for war if is needed, and come back to negotiations after war. As for the benefics, if we understand that we cannot be charitable with our Venus, then we can practice benevolence where benevolence is due. For example, I have 10th house Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. I'm charitable with my teachings. Those teachings are life-saving. If I would think like United States, I would charge the world's economy for the world's economy, which would be a bubble pop. And because I have Jupiter as 10th house, I'm also aware that but I'm not charitable with my Venus, which means I never consented. Whatever people encounter or whatnot, they basically encounter rape. If we understand that we can be charitable with our teachings, particularly the ones that prevent war or make war more minimalistic, we can be charitable with our Jupiter. We can be charitable with benevolence. We cannot be charitable with our Venus. We can be charitable with our teachings about Venus, but we cannot be charitable with our Venus. And if we understand that the issues of Venus are not about choice, but about whether that Venus had access to zero rape, zero slavery or not. End of story. Mercury, by the way, is moving between the sects, and Mercury rules language, which means any culture, indigenous, modern, elite, not elite, any culture that has a word for whore, prostitute, is susceptible to complete extinction, colonization, and all the horrible things by the other cultures until this becomes a word that exists only in ancient language and not in modern. Particularly if being a wife entails being a whore or prostitute at home. And we see that how Mercury being moving through the day and night sects is ruling language, and how simple words can tell us so much about the culture. Is this culture ready for the unification of the sects? The potential in the unification of the sects is tremendous. It is something that it's something that the courtesan cultures can only envision as utopia, but is basis. And many things are also telling that we're coming out of the ages of sacrifice by CNH to age of Aquarius, and well, or golden ages. And golden ages, basically, if the what they call Kali Yuga, Kali's destruction, is about or Dark Ages is about where everything comes to the surface. There is this war of all against all, or Gog and Magog. Golden Ages is after we've purged all these wrongs. So in Dark Ages, it seems, oh, it's the most ancient profession. Why were the Jews persecuted for so many centuries? Were their prophets, Amos, Mariam, pertain to the core of the issue? Even Jesus, that was Jewish before, guess The Jesuits, by the way, weren't getting that completely correctly because they did redemption by torture. They did the myth of abolishing rape and slavery, but not the actual praxis. This is why what was thought to be the abolitionist didn't prevail as much as it could have if it was an actual abolitionist. Irish people, Palestinian people, and other persecuted tribes and nations, even First Nations that normalized using Venus as means to power, which violates will and consent. It basically is using sexuality as power over, because one has psychosexual issues to do with rape that are not aligning. And those caused colonization, which was, and also abolition of the culture, the schooling, indoctrination, the names of the people, the melting pot. In certain First Nations, sexual sovereignty, and the reason I stopped calling it sexual sovereignty but zero rape, zero slavery, sexual sovereignty was seen as the real estate that they would traffic people and call it better conditions for sex works. There's nothing like that, because they raped these people as children and they decided that they will be prostitutes. And they try to normalize that. Okay, I'm half Dutch, so I know about these things that will happen in my country. And they did that to the boys, to the men, forced sex changes, coerced LGBTQ. Okay, because in the extortion calls they had to sleep with both men and women. And they were persecuted if they spoke. This eclipse is having Lilith square in the nodes. And not only that, they had to kill their Gegenüber, or kill their loved ones, to show that they really, really want to be a part of society, basically, because that entails staying alive back then. And it's such a tremendous thing where it seems like to die is to abandon the people that are still there, or to, it's kind of like to, those that die are sort of no longer have to suffer. And at the same time, being sorry for those that die, because people do want to live. So this eclipse with Lilith square in the nodes really brings these topics. And again, how Mercury and language assist us to discern the cultures for what they actually are. By the way, sexual boundary violation impairs language acquisition. Falcon, there is an eclipse. It's not the 666 readers. It's an actual reading. So when it comes to military strategies, we see the combinations of being, even for the NATO alliance, being ruled by the malefic out of sect, which is Mars and its home sign, showing us that there must be unification of the sects, which means that the wealth that was made through what they call prostitutes or whores and the money laundering affiliated and sexpionage, because they raped the sexpionage. This is challenging, both the being able to raise funding for war, the war strategy, and so on and so forth. But the potential is the unification of the sects, because just because it's affecting the alliance, it is calling us the only way to survive this as alliance is the unification of the sects, which is zero rape, zero slavery. Okay? And here we're going to have today the eclipse, full lunar eclipse, moon with Ketu, and the cultures, the peoples, the tribes, the families, and the mothers. I have to warn my mom, which is useless. That are going to be purged is those that have the word whore or prostitute in their languages as modern words that are still used in that context. And it's going to be like something that's continuous because of the receptions between ruler of Ketu, ruler of Rahu, and the moon. Populist leaders are very affected. What my recommendation? To meditate on how is word whore or prostitute used. Okay, validity issues. Whore, prostitute, or espionage is used in your culture, and what residues do you have? Also in the satire and the jokes, because Mercury is jokes, and to use this to purge these words not only in the language but also in the belief system. But through meditation, it's not about faking it, and it's not about PC. It's about genuinely and authentically trying to see how did that affect your sexuality, your beliefs, your relations, your attachment patterns, your people, and from authentic place to purge that from authentic place. Okay, it's not calling to people to fake it. It's not censorizing people or censorizing their thoughts or censorizing their beliefs. It's simply to meditate on this issue. And again, whether you agree, disagree, whatnot, just to tend to this topic is already the remediation for this eclipse. Just to tend to these topics. By the way, the person, when I was doing the Nebalgedi talisman, the one you see here, there was another consciousness when I was painting that, and I was not trusting that consciousness. But what it consciousness mentioned when I was drawing the Dana Valgadi was the word Chor. And this either could be someone that heard this being said about me behind my back, coming from the Netherlands, or I think it's the person with Rahu, with Saturn Neptune around the Rahu now. And this Dana Valgadi, what she gave me this notion of for the word Chor and how it's used in the culture. And it was something that was completely blind spot to me. Like I had no idea about these things. And basically, since that, I've been tending to this topic. And it could be that energy received even wealth on scam that was to do with somebody being raped and portrayed as whore. But because she gave these teachings and because I tended to the issue, I believe that that issue can be remediated by abolishing these practices. And by the way, I had weight gain, which is almost like the Beta Per Se stories of her being turned to snakes so that she would not be attractive. So very, very intricate topics. Yes, if it's the person that I think they have in Pluto going over the moon, or had Pluto going over the moon, and for the good things that they did, I'm really thankful. And they were also showing me the forced sex changes that happen to people. And her brother was showing me that they force sex change and then call people clone. Yes, but if there was really their energies, because it could be that they were tortured and the energies were taken by somebody else. But this is as far as what I saw. And she was foreseeing the move from the previous city to this city, and then she was foreseeing certain things around the eclipses, and this is why I'm tending to this topic, because these are the people that would venerate the eclipses, but for that case it was eclipse child. So so when eclipse children are speaking to me, I just take it into account and tending to these topics. Now again, that person could have been in situation where they try to do horrible things to me, but I'm tending to what would cause them to do that, which is the topics that I've been tending to. And I think it was after that I saw the episode with Peggy Van Roy by Anneke Lucas and by Rames Dyke's podcast. So yeah, Alandra episode, Peggy Van Roy, Douglas McIntyre, all very important to understand for these things. Yes, Lilith is squaring the nodes in this eclipse. For anything that didn't have the unification of the sex, they still have rape and slavery in it. Again, it's not shame or blame, it's simply it's simply situation, circumstances, because a lot with this can even be unconscious. But anything that still have this in depth, will result in purging people, houses continuously. Again, the sun right now is 11th. It's going to be 12. There's nothing particularly 22ing 11th or anything like that. But it is, it's happening because of this square to Lilith. By the way, it can also be if people purge the concept of rape and slavery and basically the concept of what they call whore or prostitute, then they will have prosperity. It's a Jupiter hour eclipse. Jupiter is exalted, and they will have prosperity that brings in even ancestral wisdom regarding housing, care, the correct medicines, the correct words, even healing of communication issues, and for populist leaders, better connection, better ability to represent the people, which means successful leadership. Okay, so I always like to talk about the potentials and not just the doom and gloom. I state very clearly what the doom and gloom is so that people will understand the full extent of the implications, but there are those implications don't come to us usually without being able to do something about them. And this eclipse carries Mars Mars will ingress today before the eclipse. So beliefs around Martian things are arriving already. And we can see, he says, surely this is utopia to where the world is. I said, I don't make the rules. If this is utopia, then the dystopia will be very real. Which means that the implications for this being an utopia would be very real. In the sense that those that believe that they will win the war by rape and slavery, let's just say, don't pray for them, defend from them. You can pray for them, but while you defend from them. Pray for them when you defend from them. Okay? Yeah. Now let's talk about the last thing, which is the birthing of girls. Why girls? Because even boys were used as girls in extortion codes. So it's concerning birthing of children in general, but particularly around the birthing of girls. This is going to carry beyond implications to any place where being a girl or birth of a girl was considered unlucky. This is going to affect very, very malefically those cultures that have residues of birth of girls considered being unlucky. And to those cultures that try to bring girls or that are scheduled to birth girls, they will run into all of the things about women and girls that they abhor. For example, I had to run into what would make a Ghislaine Maxwell. those women that are more on the Ghislaine Maxwell would run into exactly for the women that trigger all of these Ghislaine Maxwell parts in all that made them Ghislaine Maxwell, not because of anything but the way that a daughter would do. Okay, for example, I, as daughter, both encouraged my mother to write sex scenes in Fata Morgana and in her books, and got contact with her for 2 years during the Me Too. Which means, yes, I edited sex scenes that my mother wrote. Okay? This is the truth. And got contact within the Me Too. So she had no escape. To recontact with me, she had to confront things that were going all the way to even my birthing. Even though the birthing was from love and so on and so forth. And this was, let's just say, hell was a cool place then to face that when the daughter is already alive. Imagine a woman that is angry of her daughter and then hear the words, "Why did you bring me to life?" Okay? So before there are births of more daughters, okay? And a lot of people that are, I noticed before, just like before we're about to launch a business or succeed or level up, the things that we need to purge, they come to the rise to the surface. For example, I was trying to promote independent housing for people that were living in hostels and were not satisfied with their residence. And then I ran into the housing bubble and the Dante estate. Okay? Because before I actually am successful in getting that lady out of the hostel and rent apartment and have people assisting her when she rents her own apartment, I had to look at, hey, what exactly am I renting? Because it's not an apartment, and I did not know that. Just in that fashion, before the birthing of daughters, all of these things come to the surface. Mother-daughter relation. But also father-daughter relation. The fathers that got contact with the children that they sent to the military academy, and the children like Eliza were raped and tortured until they became seductress, or what they call the sexpionage, and then they cut contact with the daughters because they thought the daughters were whores. I cannot begin to stress how much, and then the Soviet Union fell, but I cannot begin to stress how much damage this behavior of the fathers bring upon the legacy. And I'm so thankful to Elijah for exposing that, because she was a KGB spy and she escaped to the United States. Now, I know United States is not the perfectest place, and I am talking about the MK Ultra, the MK Ultra, and so on and so forth. But she was the one that exposed that. Whether she does or what, I'm not talking about what she does, but okay. Like I said, it took a drug lord down, but the Soviet Union fell. And so when it comes to the birthing of daughters, and for women that went through rape and developed technique for when they enjoy to be to have the sexual power of a man. The women, a lot of the women that had even the husband trying to murder them had this. And it's a calling, and as readers, some of them would contact me around the births of daughters, or wanting to birth a daughter, or improve relationship with daughters. Um, and it stems from feeling basically helplessness during what is not sex, is actually rape. And for people that try to turn people into honeypots. Okay? Honeypots are created to create political assassination. And usually the honeypot will assassin the one who tried to make a honeypot. Okay, so I want to emphasize on that. Yes, sex trafficking is used to create political assassination, tended to political assassination prevention. This is how I got to know about those things. Yep. People like, so what killed JFK Falcon? Connect the dots yourselves. And by the way, for the people that act against those things, okay, against extortion cults, and genuinely act against extortion cults, probably they're trying to juxtapose them to people that are affiliated with those. So, yep, this is particularly, for example, for me, it came from a ritual abuse survivor. But that, by the way, they would try to use him to assassinate one person, then they would try to use him to assassinate to assassinate another. Yep, like I said, this attended to political assassination prevention. I understand the raison d'etre behind the orchestrations of these things. So those are the really heavy topics that this eclipse is posing. And the sorting of the T-square between the Lilith and the nodes is by Mercury that is in Pisces, because it would be 8 degrees Gemini, ruled by Mercury that is in Pisces. Which, to some people it may resonate. If somebody is being a hater, addressing for that person who is being a hater, addressing their own shadow work about why are they being hater? Okay? Or nemesis. What do we have? Nemesis? Is going to be even life-saving for both the person is dealing with haters, but also for the person who finds themselves being a hater. And again, it can strike people in ways that they were never haters, and then suddenly they find themselves being haters to someone. The more they tend to that, the more they meditate on that, and with Mercury, they will have to wonder about the words that they used as hater. And I predict that it has something to do with that prostitute or whore, or huren or something like that. And they have to really, really address that and meditate on that, because it's going to be very important. I don't know in what way, but it's going to be some fated events regarding that. Okay, okay, okay. Um, and by the way, the more that they meditate on that, and they can remediate the eclipse. Okay, it's like a keto remediation. Projection of how should I say that? With people, how should I say? Another word is the blame shift and projection on, for people being perverts or something like that. How should I say that? To say that the raped person is the pervert, okay, falls into that category. Again, all the types of victim blaming, okay, the blame shifting, the victim blaming, all those things are particularly risky. Because they unfold in ways that are, and here's the thing, usually the people are susceptible to that have already been ritually abused. So recovery, I have been saying that since I was talking about Hans Medema. If you're a ritual abuse survivor and you still call someone the whore, think that somebody owes you sex, think that the rape was pervert, all these things, then you have exited maybe the setting of the ritual, but you have not exited the mindset of the ritual abuse. And knowing that, tending to that, is remedial. Yes, there is no, with this one, even though Uranus is on Beta per se, but there's just something about this one that doesn't, because of Mercury, it's the details about beliefs, about relations. And the Lilith here, it doesn't let us, how should I say that, there's no stone unturned when it comes to purging the programming of the courtesan towards unification of the sects, because otherwise humanity is going extinct. And if humanity is still with that courtesan, humanity going extinct is a good thing. If humanity is making place for life, which is unification of the sects and all these things I mentioned, then is point to maintain humanity. Then it would be a tragedy for humanity to go extinct under those circumstances. Do I have Nemesis here? I have Nemesis as asteroid. No, Nemesis in Capricorn. Not so relevant. It's ruled by Saturn, but not so relevant. Okay, so what is said about the hater? It can be relevant through when people do the blame shifting And particularly something, big shout out to Laita Sefa. People that have been trying to, the things that I was completely unaware of, that some people have, she called it contracts with lust entities. I guess a part of the ritual abuse that they do, or whether they create entities or summon entities, people that had to deal with limerence and lust, and projected it to other people. It can be people that Pluto was going over the Lilith, or Lilithesque issues, okay, basically. And if these people try to project the lust that they have onto another, for example, during the Me Too, I addressed a topic called misplaced arousal. By that meaning, I did the shadow work of why was something around the sexuality not something in for me. And then I said, instead of to blame, to shame, to persecute, I'm like, hey, I want to find my sense of self and the sexuality that I do want first. And I ran into the teachings that was misplaced arousal, which is basically trauma bond. And in trauma, they can be heightened with the hormones because they try to alleviate pain. And this is why something was not something for me. Crystal I worked a lot with is malachite, psychosexual issues, and the people that project their issues. Okay, and here's the thing: the person that was trying to traffic me, or the offender, they also had issues like that, and I identify that. And we have another such segment, and this is where projecting issues of lust and limerence onto another that is doing the shadow work, that is standing to these things, can incredibly malefically backfire. I remind us that in those rituals they use even psychedelics, particularly to try to make people do things that are considered perversion, so that they will have something to extort on. And the people that try to do that, again, I'm called to talk about, a lady was called Karen Moskovich, and she was in my age. We were maybe 13 or 14. I was going to her, I don't know, birthday party or girls' party, and she tried to put whiskey in my tea or coffee. And later her friend Moran would tell me that they wanted to film me with the dog doing something to me. And I did not like this taste of alcohol, and I did not drink that, and they were not able to film that. Now, later she would be, what was scary about these things is when she became kindergarten teacher, not because she became kindergarten teacher, but because at the Me Too she said, oh my God, if you are lying to me about this, because you lied to me when I was like, darling, I lied to you about communicating with Scully and Mulder after you literally tried to put a sex snuff film of porn of me as child with your dog doing something to me when I'm drunk. If as a person that is caretaking to children, you cannot discern one thing from another. And by the way, with all the surveillance, I'm not even sure I was lying. I lied to her that I communicate with Scully and Mulder. I don't know why. I said that was my way of vengeance. I did not rape. I did not torture. I did not molest. I just